It's the Live Breakfast with Stephen Shahs. Wednesdays are for your mental health. Joining us in the studio this morning, Dr. Anjhula Bais, international psychologist with the Mind Faculty. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so today we're going to tackle regret. Now, according to the dictionary, regret is a feeling of sadness, repentance, or disappointment over an occurrence or something that one has done or failed to do. And it's something that we sometimes feel whether we want to or not. So, are we supposed to feel regret, Dr.
Absolutely.
Anjhula?
But I think the question is to which extent, for how long, and how intense. And then just feeling regret in and of itself is not good enough. What are we taking away? What is the functional value of that, right? So in psychology, we have a saying that guilt is one of the most useless emotions that one can have. And often what's not understood or not studied, that along with regret, there's often feelings such as humiliation, shame, guilt, anger, resentment. So there's always, a secondary order feeling. And with the guilt, you got to ask yourself, what value does that create? What is that doing for you? Nothing really. When I speak to clients, it's like wearing a knapsack, taking a hike, and in that knapsack, you're carrying boulders. If you're carrying a nutritious bar or a bottle of water, things that help you, that can sustain you, wonderful when you're hiking. Otherwise, set that bag down and go freely. So, there's different ways of thinking of regret, but what I would say is up to a point, it is very useful, and then after that, it's downhill.
Okay. Well, speaking of point, how do we keep ourselves living in the moment and not sort of regretting and feeling guilty about the past and dreading the future?
Well, there's a tendency. There was one study done in Harvard about a man who always every week picked the same lottery numbers. And one week he forgot to renew his ticket, and it was that week that his numbers were called.
Oh.
Yeah. And he had so much regret that he actually ended up committing suicide. And the lesson we can learn from that is because he was so easily able to envision a different future, right? So part of learning from regret and then letting it go is challenging the counterfactual thinking. So, human beings have a tendency to be like, what if I had? But I would suggest, what do I want now? If we're too busy looking at the rearview mirror of things gone by, we miss the scenery, and we're going to get into a crash because we're not focusing on what's beside us and what's in the future, right? There's also ways of thinking about, how can you take the sting out of regret or counter it? There are remedies. If you have regret for not spending enough time with your children, for example, you're at a park and you see a parent carefreely playing, well, then maybe you can try to strive for a work-life balance, and then it takes the sting out of regret. But it also serves as a very useful mechanism. You want to be in the moment, embrace the lesson, and have self-love.
Right.
Well, Dr. Anjhula Bais is with us this morning. She's an international psychologist with the Mind Faculty as we discuss regret and what we can actually do to overcome regret. Very, very important point, which we'll discuss with the good doctor after Madonna on Lite.